I am shocked at how average-sized Hannah Horvath is. Says Eleanor Savage, I'm rewatching the show for the first time since it came out. I cannot believe how not fat Hannah is. I'm fat now as an adult, 35, size 18/20. I thought I was enormous as a teen, and I absolutely was not. Even other characters calling her chubby or thick is so jarring. Even looking at the subreddit from when the episodes in season 2 were first released, people were shocked that Donald Glover's character could be into her. But she seems very average-sized, even to me who hated myself as a teen. I appreciate Adam's reaction at the end of season 1. Paraphrasing, you're like 11 pounds overweight and you act like it's the worst thing in the world. American Peony says, my takeaway from her memoir was that not only was she struggling with the fat shaming once the show began, but she was also losing weight and or at some of her personal thinnest weights because of her health issues. So she feels like crap because she's malnourished and also feels concerned over her weight loss, but simultaneously the public is calling her a fat whale. How mentally distressing and heartbreaking that must feel, I can't even imagine. When you're playing a character in general, there's such a vulnerability, which is why I think acting and performing is like one of the best jobs in the world, and I would be so humbled to be able to do it more full time in the future, because the vulnerability you need not only to portray a character that is distanced from yourself relatively, but you're doing it through your own body. Like your body is the channel. And so people start commenting on you as if you're the character, and these lines start to blur. And I can't imagine how much that must be so difficult, especially if a character is kind of based around who you are and your life. Crindy says, I can't believe I used to think she was chubby or big. I recently rewatched Girls and Tiny Furniture, and I couldn't stop thinking about how wrong I was. Similarly, Mindy Kaling in The Office, WTF. Someone else says, Kate Winslet in Titanic. Natalie in Love Actually. And it's a little chilling because in the 90s we had heroin chic, right? And now we have whatever the Ozempic crisis is now, which I think is pretty terrifying, where we see people who don't even like need Ozempic who are taking it, and we're going back to this sort of heroin chic, like how bony can you be, like how thin can you be. I was just listening to an interview with Robbie Hoffman this morning, and I was just taken aback by like, I love how unique looking she is. She does have this same like shtick when it comes to what she wears. She wears minimal makeup. I think the fashion that's going to be moving forward very soon is like, how different can you look from what this traditional is, especially as we start seeing like AI influencers. Like I'm seeing so many ads now where there's people with talking heads and it's clearly AI, and soon it's not going to be clear. And so it's like, what can we do to just show our uniqueness? I always say that I feel like Girls is so ahead of its time. And I was listening to an interview with Lena, I think it was on Las Culturistas, where there's a episode with her and Elijah going partying, and they're just like, okay, so you're gonna wear this like see-through crop top, what are you gonna wear underneath? And she's like, nothing, my accessory is nothing. It's like this 23, 24-year-old having this entire like HBO show that she can produce, and the magic that comes from this, of coming from her like writing so many naked scenes on stage. I'd love to be inside her brain. Tox Chick says, I absolutely shocked my 20-ish daughter by telling her that Lena Dunham was thought to be absolutely fat and disgusting, wild. It's even hard for me to like read this because I don't even want to perpetuate the language used around this human being, this incredible beautiful human and mind. River Tadpoles actually says, this makes me think of a common criticism of Bridget Jones's diary. People are offended that she's supposed to be fat, but if you read the books, it's more obvious. It's not exactly the same situation with Girls because Hannah's supposed to be considered fat by both herself and everyone around her. I'm also thinking of Off Campus, where people are just like, oh my gosh, like a chubby girl. It's like, what? How is that chubby? Like, it's so confusing to me how people are even bringing these words around. And like, again, as a content creator myself, I see that I'm perpetuating this conversation by even using this word in relation to it. But I just feel like it needs to be spoken about because of how ridiculous it is. Lonely Host says they really leaned on wardrobe to make the visual joke, unflattering clothes and awkward attempts at sexy dressing to make her body seem like more of a joke. I don't know, actually. I don't know if they did that. I would love to see what the wardrobe department decided to do with that. I completely agree with this fan theory. I feel like there's a fine line between like talking about it and also just not talking about it. So again, I see like what I'm doing by actually just perpetuating conversations like this. It's kind of like how gay relationships on TV and film used to be like that was the plot of the film. Like, oh, they're gay. Like, oh, okay. That's like their whole thing. But now you see it's not part of it at all. It's like, okay, so-and-so is with so-and-so, moving on. Like, I just want the conversations about all of this to stop. And again, I see how hypocritical I am because I am talking about it. But I do want to address how things are shifting. And at some point, how we can all just kind of be like, oh, cool, a person who doesn't fit the traditional beauty standards. Like, I want to hear something else. You know, I want to hear beyond that. Like, what's the deeper depths of this person? I hope very soon that conversations about people's sizes, like, will become a thing of the past, or at least a little bit more than it is now. Fan theory number 2 is that there is a girls alt normie creative consumer quadrant. This is by Information Station. Girls exist on 2 axes, normie alt and creative consumer. So for example, Shosh is in the normie consumer quadrant, Marnie is normie creative, Mimi Rose is somehow dead center. I haven't even finished this, I'm like, yeah. Alt creative is Hannah and alt consumer is Jessa. Normie creative Marnie, normie consumer Shosh. Each girl is a quadrant with all the other characters existing to test the limits. So for example, Ray is furiously alternative and anti-consumption, which is why his relationship with Shosh is doomed. Or is that why his relationship with Shosh is perfect because they're opposites attract. Fiona Goodenough says, I love how much it would deviate Jessa to realize Marnie is indeed more creative than she is. Throwaway, followed by a bunch of numbers, says, this is so cool. I love seeing the girls as a representation of an idea. I have thought of them not as actual people, but as representing a common personality flaw of youth. I completely agree with that. And how one enters their 30s having either addressed or not addressed it in their 20s. Hannah's narcissism, Marnie's codependency, Jess's addiction, and Shosh's naivety. Wow, I love that. That's so profound and so spot on. I really like yours because it's in a grid form. Very satisfying. I mean, because Girls is, I'm not even going to say loosely based off Sex and the City. It's just that there's inspiration from Sex and the City, you know, like 4 main women, that we all cycle between many of these girls throughout our lives, throughout a year, throughout a month, sometimes even like throughout the day. I mean, I'm a self-proclaimed Shosh. Have I had times where I am a Jessa? Marnie? Heck yes. Hannah? Absolutely. And the same thing could be said about the squad in Sex and the City. And really that's what like media and culture is that it's all a representation. It's all a reflection. You know, we see these characters and the reason why we stick with a character is because we see ourselves in them somehow. I think the shows and the movies that really take off, and it's even the ones that you'd be like, that's sci-fi with like a bunch of aliens. How does that reflect who I am? Because it's something deeper. I remember my English teacher back in high school, we would have to write papers on books. And she said, I'm always gonna ask you like what the theme is of the book. The theme, if you don't know what the theme is, if you're struggling to find one, there is always a theme of power in every single piece of art. So if you don't know what to use power as one of them. I'm thinking like one of the first episodes in the show when Hannah finds out that Elijah's gay and they go and share a glass of wine and Hannah's like, I wish you would have realized that you were gay before we started dating. She's trying to get power over him. She wants him to be like, you're right. And Elijah's just like, screw you, dude. That's ridiculous. Like, your dad's gay. Like, I know everything and you know nothing. Every single scene is a power struggle. Like maybe with clients you work with or at work, you're just like, oh my God, I want to have the upper hand on this really annoying employee who thinks they know everything and they're just making everyone's lives harder. Like it's all a power struggle. Henrietta von Stadel says, also Marnie and Jessa and Hannah and Shosh being in the opposite quadrants makes so much sense with regards to their relationships. Yeah, I've never considered, and what's funny is like, I feel like the first few episodes, we really see how Marnie and Jessa sort of clash because Marnie's super controlling and she wants everything to be perfect and she wants to be in the deciding factor and she schedules the abortion and she's like, Jessa's late, she didn't show up. And Jessa's super free-willing and she's like, wow, I feel like Hannah's making a great decision of like wanting to be an artist and not having to make money. And Marnie's like, what are you saying? And sometimes when people are too similar, they clash. And someone else brings up a good point. I would point out that Shosh basically breathed life into Ray's city council campaign and rebranded Grumpy so she can be creative about consumerist things. Yeah. I mean, she like worked in marketing in Japan for a while. And I'm remembering that line where she's like, oh my gosh, he works in product and like, I love things or I love stuff. Someone questioned Mimi Rose being in the dead center and they're like, wouldn't she be alt creative? And someone else goes, I wonder if it's because she actually made it in the art world. Usually that just means having the funds to display your art in such a way. Someone says, she's absolutely dead center. She's clearly creative, but unlike Hannah and Marnie, she's been able to figure out how to be successful in her chosen creative adventures. This also ties into the normie alt binary. She's alt enough to be creative, but normie enough to figure out how to be successful at it. Jessa and Shosh are very obviously consumers, which Mimi Rose isn't in the same way they are. She doesn't really consume people the way Jessa does. She's pretty straightforward and doesn't have ulterior motives, conscious or unconscious, in her relationships. I love a good chart like this. I'm a visual learner and I feel like it's very easy for me to resonate with things like this. Totally agree. I love the conversation around this too. And if you love conversations about girls in pop culture, would love for you to hit subscribe. My name is Kira, this is Studio Violet, and we talk all about pop culture. Right now I'm breaking down girls. I do plan on doing other shows in the future, so let me know if you have any recommendations. Drop them in the comments below, and definitely like it if you're enjoying so far, and hit subscribe because I'd love to see you around. Fan theory number 3 is by No Natural 9421. Anyone else think Marnie's obsession with being a singer is fake? So their theory is that Marnie doesn't actually really want to be a singer. Let's read on. I'm a first-time watcher, so no spoilers, please. Well, I've watched it 7 times, and I feel like I learned something new about each of the characters every time that I didn't know my first watch around. So I'm already like, I think you need to watch it a few more times. I'm on season 4, episode 8, and for whatever reason, I always think that Marnie's just gonna quit the singing thing. It doesn't seem that she really wants this, and every time she's on screen, she seems so fake about it. I don't know, does anyone else get the vibe? Prudent Pressure 2146 says Marnie's trying to find a job that's creatively satisfying and also well-paying, that also inflates her ego while also being moderately talented at it. This is the plot of the whole of Girls. Someone else says, I don't think she's the slightest bit interested in creativity. She wants attention. She wants to be perceived as a creative person. I do agree with that. It's like not so much in the Mimi Rose category where she's like super alt, and like I get Hannah's perception of like, oh my God, you're so pretentious, and art for the sake of being confusing is so annoying. Like I was a theater major. I went to a lot of shows that were like experimental, and sometimes it was so experimental where it was like, you're actually just trying to alienate your audience because you're trying to be like, look how profound and smart we are, and it's really annoying. And maybe people thought that about the shows I was in. Like, that's super fair, right? But Marnie is a little bit more on the surface. She's just like singer-songwriter vibes, like ridiculous sounding lyrics that are not deep at all, but she loves that, yeah, playing in front of other people. I could totally see that. Someone says, when Ray asks her what she really, really wants to do with her life and she says, I want to sing, I burst out laughing. Marnie's desperate for love and validation. Yeah. And as a performer myself, I can say, like, there's a lot of that codependency that comes with wanting to be a performer. I mean, I literally like came out of the womb being like, yeah, I want to perform. Like, it was never a question. I never had to go on this like quarter life crisis and be like, what do I want to do with my life? I have always wanted to perform. I love it so much. And I'm sure a lot of other people on the outside kind of see it as like, well, you just want attention and everything. That's fine. I think there's a deeper element of it for me. Maybe there are also surface elements as well. Like, I'm a Leo. I feel like people can like see a lot of that. Like, we love attention and all that jazz. So I completely understand people's perceptions of performers like wanting to be the center of attention. Maybe like I'm sure there's a truth to that too. Land Boring Jessica says, Marnie seemed to have her life together in season 1, working as a curator and following a clear career path. But after she lost her job, her life took a complete 180. I think singing was one of the few things that genuinely brought her joy, even if she sounded like a Disney princess. It reconnected with her the love of musical theater and gave her a sense of purpose. Oh yeah, because she was in Rent during a time when everything else in her life felt uncertain. See, I agree with that. Back in middle school, especially when I just went through like a lot of bullying and just really hard stuff, I remember saying to myself, like, if I don't have any friends left, if I don't have anything left, at least I have theater. I was in theater classes, I was learning to sing, I had amazing teachers around me, and I was like, listen, if all else fails, at least I can sing. Like, at least I can act. And that, for me, I completely understand that. It's kind of hard now because I'm hearing both sides and I agree with both of them. Dear Dorothy is very much peaked in High School Musical theater vibes. It's the attention she wants, not actually singing. When I think of season 6, where she goes up to Hannah, helps Hannah with her baby, and she's like, hey, there's this jazz night that I really want to go to. I do feel like even though she agreed to help Hannah, she is still being drawn towards singing. You know what? I feel like my opinion after reading all of these comments has changed. I don't think it's fake. I don't agree. I don't think her obsession with singing is fake, because as a performer myself, I can say that performing has been my saving grace. The arts have been my saving grace. Even like watching pop culture and shows, and the reason why I love talking about girls is because if I'm having a rough day, I could be like, hey, I'm gonna hang out with my friends Marnie, Hannah, Shosh, and Jessa. And I do that with a lot of shows, New Girl and The Office and Mindy Project and 30 Rock. Like, I have friends there, I have people there. It sounds crazy, but this is why people have comfort shows. And for Marnie, I think singing is her comfort. And I can resonate with that too. So I do not agree with this. I think Marnie's love for singing is real. Fan theory number 4. Did Hannah S. truly violate Ray in Homeward Bound? Would your opinion be different if the roles were reversed? When a woman says no but eventually acquiesces, is that how you say that word? We still tend to view it as assault because she's been coerced or manipulated into changing her mind. Since Ray says no off the bat, are we to see it as assault even though he decides he's into it eventually? I love that we're talking about this because in my last video, which you could see right here, I got a lot of discourse in the comments about how I was defending Adam, the scene with Natalia. I was saying like, Adam does not hate women. I think he's just kooky and weird. And a lot of people in the comments were saying, well, remember that scene with Adam and Natalia when like they're doing it and all of a sudden she's kind of like, no, I don't like this. And he like does it anyway. Like, we could break down that scene altogether because it's this conversation of like, how often do we need to give consent? Was that actually assault, what Adam did to Natalia? If I remember correctly, there was consent throughout it. He was kind of like telling her to do weird stuff and she's like, okay. And for me, it was kind of angled more towards like, he likes weird things and she's like kind of into it. Like, she wants to have this experience with him. She says, I'm ready to do this. And it gets weirder and weirder and weirder. Some people can say that that was assault and sound off in the comments because I heard opinions last time, so I'm sure you have opinions now. Equally, this is a great conversation of like, was this assault with what Hannah did? And if the roles were reversed, I guarantee we'd be hearing a lot more just like in the Adam-Natalia situation. So let's hear what some people have to say. The scene was awful and isn't talked about enough. I honestly don't know why Hannah got such a broad pass with viewers, especially after scenes like this. It was pretty awful. It was crazy. I mean, like, we've seen Hannah do a bunch of things, the iconic scene of Hannah and flashing the principal and then Fran being like, you can't just show your hoo-ha to people. And she's like, it's about to be summer. Like, she's just going off the deep end with how ridiculous she's being. Someone else says, she did, and no, my opinion wouldn't be different if the genders were reversed. He didn't decide he was into it. His body did, which doesn't invalidate an assault when that happens. I have to read that again. He didn't decide he was into it. His body did, which doesn't invalidate. So it validates an assault when that happens. I think I'm following that. And someone else goes, no, his body didn't want it because she made comments about his body wasn't getting. You're right, I forgot all about that part. I was trying to comment on the implication that if someone's body has a response, it makes it not an assault. Someone says, I choose to black out during that scene. It feels out of character and weird and it's never mentioned again. Also, that episode is written by Murray Miller, which feels extra icky. Out of character, Hannah literally the episode before showed her to her boss without his consent to try to get out of trouble. Hannah she flashes him. I mean, if a guy did that, and I'm thinking to that episode where she goes over to that writer's house because she wrote a column about how he was hooking up with college people, and he was like, I would never do that. I can't believe all these accusations. And then he asked her to be on the bed, and then he whips out his thing and has her touch it. Or no, and then she touches it. This is what I'm saying. I say this over and over again, how gray this show is. I will repeat it till the cows come home. We see moments in other shows, New Girl's at the top of my mind because it's one of my favorites, where the right and wrong is very clear. Schmidt is dating Cece and this other person. That's wrong. He's gonna get caught, and he does, and he suffers through it. Nick and Jess think that Jess's student is going to her, and so they sneak into his house and they get caught. That's justified. They shouldn't have done that. It is very clear in lots of television shows, and these are because a lot of these shows, I would imagine, are they're highly scripted. I know Judd Apatow encourages a lot of improv on Girls, so I don't know how loosey-goosey it comes to when maybe there's a bunch of different takes and a bunch of different cuts that they're going through, and they're saying, should I do this one? Should I do this one? Should I do this one? And maybe the lines are different. Maybe the scene is really different. Maybe the actions are different. Maybe she puts her hand here before this happens versus after it happens, and it completely changes the narrative. So there's so much gray in this show. Not to mention she does it with a minor when she visits Jess's father. Yeah, so we're talking about how, Hannah, it can be very inappropriate. I think that people forget that this is a comedy with dramatic notes, says Neither Increase 440. And this is something I mentioned in my last video as well, is like, at the end of the day, this is a show. It's not that serious. Of course, there is so much importance on the way that shows might romanticize certain things or don't. I don't think Girls romanticizes anything. I think that's the whole point. The show is literally, the color grading is very muted to the point we're not even seeing colors as we would see them as brightly in real life, because there is such a raw and real energy about this, especially compared to a show like Sex and the City, where, wow, oh my gosh, we're sleeping with guys every night, and you never see them in a subway, versus Girls, you see them in a subway, you see these dirty bathtubs that they're having baths in. I don't think any of this is romanticized. It's meant to be extreme, insane, over-exaggerated, and I think at times we're over-analyzing it, and I think that's a great call out. I love having conversations about this. I have an entire YouTube channel about it. We're taking a step back, and we're not taking it too seriously, because ultimately the whole purpose of something like this is so we can all have our own different reactions to it. Everyone's gonna have a different reaction. What I was always told in acting school and theater school was the worst thing that can happen is someone sees your show and afterwards they're like, okay, you want to get pizza? They have nothing to say about it. The best shows I've ever seen is when I can go see a show and then we can have dinner afterwards, and I'm like, okay, let's talk about what happened at the opening of Act 2. What was that? Do you think they meant this? Do you think they meant that? That's the joy of it, right? And as long as we can come away from that conversation being like, I love seeing that show, I loved having this conversation, that's what it's about. We don't want to get too heated over things like this. It's not going to make or break anything, and it is a living piece of history as well. There's no way that I'm writing this off, because it was definitely wrong. Hannah does so many wrong things. So many people in the show do so many wrong things. I just want to take a step back and remind us that yes, it is that serious in the moment, but then when we take a step back and talk about it, we can have conversations like this and still go about our days and just wonder, what was the purpose of that? And that's why I think it would be so fun to at some point have a conversation with anybody on the team, like Jenny or Lena or Judd, and genuinely say, hey, what was your purpose in this? Because we're never gonna know. We're never gonna know, oh, Lena meant to do this, unless she's actually told us. So we're always making an inference too on what was intentionally done and what wasn't intentionally done. We really don't know unless we hear it firsthand. I do agree that Hannah violated Ray. It was definitely inappropriate. It was weird. It was crazy, and I would not recommend. I would not recommend. I would recommend subscribing if you are enjoying this, because I would love to see you around and hear all of your thoughts and opinions about this wonderful show. Fan theory number 5 is by Fernilli, basically saying Natalia is pretty screwed up. And they give a few bullet points about why. Her mom was super bizarre with repeating, I'll tell you you'll be calling her, I'll tell her you'll be calling her. Why would she trust her mom, who's in AA, to set her up with someone who's also in AA? She seems to have her stuff together. I don't like the idea of writing someone off just because they're in a recovery program, because there's a lot of people who aren't in recovery programs, and you might be like, oh, well, they're not in AA, so they're better. They could be much worse. I don't like that. I think it's pretty messed up how she aimed her anger at Hannah and said that she will be a bad mom and her kid and won't get any milk out of her. Yeah, that was wild. That was wild. Amy Schumer being on it too. I'm like, hey. It's also messed up how she was okay with Adam drinking. That was crazy to me. I did not like that at all. I did not like that, especially if you have a loved one in your family who is in a program and you know how important it is, and he's like, I'll have one. That was messed up. Let's see what people have to say. Relative Eb 1719. Natalia seemed to have an idealized or naive view of Adam. When she first saw his apartment, she commented on how it didn't seem like him, though we know how it actually represented him quite well. I think this ties into her lack of concern when he had a drink. She saw him as someone healthier and more stable than he actually was. To be fair to her, Adam was on his best behavior for her at the start, but couldn't keep his mask on for long. The more I'm reading this, the more I'm agreeing that Natalia does not have a good perception on all of that. And going back to the scene that we had a lot of discourse on over the last video that I made about, like, was this assault, was it not, with like Adam and Natalia? I think there were so many mixed messages with both of them. And I think she had these expectations and hopes that, you know, they would have a normal time in bed, that he would just be normal. I think she wanted him to be normal. Like, normal people can manage their drinks, right? Normal people have normal time in bed. Normal people have normal apartments. And as much as Adam can be on his best behavior, he's gonna eventually show who he really is. And I think maybe Natalia liked his looks, but the weirdness is just not something she could get by. And that's the thing. I think Adam is odd. And that's why him and Hannah were together and worked for a while, is because they're both very odd. And I think even Adam, like in one of the first episodes, he was like, oh yeah, you know, you got fired at your job. Well, you're probably not one of those people who like need a traditional job. You're probably like me, where you can't work in these structured environments. And I agree with that. You know, there's some people who can do corporate and other people who can't. I think corporate is kind of crazy for especially women, just the way that everything is structured. It just makes no sense to our cycles and to our lives, but that's a whole other conversation. Ray Fi says, I chalked up her mom repeating those words with just being an eclectic old woman. Yes. Also, her being okay with Adam drinking read to me that she wasn't really sure how to handle it, considering her new relationship with Adam. That Starfish says, children of alcoholics have complex relationships with their parents. Natalia may be wanting to please her mother because that's an old way of abating mom's poor behavior. Or because mom is sober now, pleasing mom will help her stay sober. We call it magical thinking in my field. And recovering addicts still date and can have their stuff together too. Adam was like over 5 years sober at that point. Dating is only discouraged in the first year or so of recovery. And it's discouraged within the same recovery groups, like dating within the circle. I agree with that. It's like, oh, you shouldn't get on it. Like, you shouldn't carry on with your life because you are in a 12-step program. Like, no, you could be a normal, you could like have a normal life and also be in recovery. That's actually a very normal thing to do, is to get help for something you need help with. Now, Calamity Kitten says, speaking as someone in recovery, recovering alcoholics do a lot of really dumb stuff. They also tend to really underestimate how messed up people in the rooms of AA can be. I've literally heard people say things like, I'd be thrilled if my non-alcoholic son or daughter brought you home. Like, well, you should probably want more for your kid who doesn't have addiction issues and who's probably already traumatized from yours. Huh, okay. He was really, really tall, and regrettably, that's where the bar was set for most of our 20s. So it's like, yeah, did she just date him because he was tall and handsome? So a lot of people are speaking about how Natalia is a people pleaser to her mom. I'm not thinking that deep into it. Like, I don't think it's that deep, but I do think I'm agreeing with Admirable Pigeon over here. Her not immediately suggesting they leave the bar when Adam wants a drink makes me hate her. Any idiot would have gotten them out of there, especially one who had a mom in AA. Yeah, I didn't love that. I didn't love that. And you know, even though you don't know the person for that long, it just kind of says a lot when you're like, oh, this person who actively goes to meetings and knows that they can't trust themselves. I mean, I even would be like, are you comfortable being at a bar? I mean, maybe I'm biased because my fiance is over a decade sober, but even he's super conscious about people who might be struggling with that and being like, oh, let's make sure the setting that we go to does not have a lot of alcoholic drinks. Let's make sure there's NA options. I mean, even as we're planning our wedding, he wants a whole section of just NA options. I think Natalia has this thought and hope that Adam is normal. Again, going back to the scene of Adam and Natalia in bed and being like, did he assault her? Like, did he not? I just feel like it's foggy because I think she's saying yes because she wants him to be somebody, and then he is quirky. And now this isn't to write off him doing that. Like, once she says no, it's important that he stops. Just like it's important that Hannah does all of these things. So I'm not saying any of these characters are good. It's just foggy. It's really gray. Like, Natalia was super, super messed up. And if you did not watch that last episode where we dive a little bit more into Adam being or not being a misogynist, go ahead and watch this next video. I will see you there. Thanks so much for hanging out. Bye.
You always